We want to be 10 times more productive than we would be if we were, say, working at big tech, right? And in order to be 10 times more productive, have 10 times more impact, we have to do things completely differently.
Welcome to Data and AI Mastery, the podcast where we bring you cutting-edge insights, practical advice, and inspiring stories from the leaders shaping the future of data and AI across the globe. I'm your host, Raoul-Gabriel Urma, founder of Cambridge Spark, the leader in transformational data and AI upskilling, career development, and progression. In each episode, I will be diving into real-world case studies of companies harnessing the power of AI to drive innovation, reduce costs, and create new business opportunities. So whether you are an aspiring data scientist, AI engineer, or seasoned executive, this show is designed to give you the tools and knowledge to stay ahead in a world where data is transforming every aspect of business. Stay ahead, stay inspired, stay masterful. Welcome to Data and AI Mastery.
Salut Jeff, how's it going?
Salut. It's going great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Hugging Face is such a cool brand in the AI community. So what a delight to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
To kick us off, Jeff, you're basically leading all business functions at Hugging Face. Can you tell us a little bit, what does that entail? And for those that, haven't come across Hugging Face, what is it all about?
Yes. Well, Hugging Face is the leading open platform for AI builders, right? AI builders, that means AI researchers, data scientists, engineers, and now even software developers who are using open models to build their own AI. And there's about 10 million of these AI builders today on Hugging Face.
Very cool. So Jeff, if I take you then back to your role, so what does a day look like in a Jeff's world right now? Leading business functions at Hugging Face. There's a lot of momentum, a cool community. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, a day in the life. Well, I really try to limit. I think it would surprise you, like how few meetings we have. It's a mundane thing, right? But it really helps to paint the picture, like how different our culture is. I think I saw on X one of my colleagues, Andy, post a screenshot of their time management app, and they were like, "Well, last month I had 0 hour in meeting. Maybe that's why I was so productive and shipped so many things." I can't really do 0 hours because I work with all of our partners, etc. But I think that's a distinctive feature of working at Hugging Face. We really prioritize asynchronous work, and we try to do as much as we can to sort of protect each other's productive time, focus time, so that we can really focus on shipping more things. And I think that's really why we're able to do so much and ship so much with a team that's sort of relatively small, right? We are 250 people today.
Okay. So what's the secret then to not having so many meetings, enabling deep work? How do you innovate in a way where you can minimizing meeting time? So how does it work? What can other companies learn from the secret sauce here?
Well, I think it's really ingrained in our culture. Actually, what Clem, our CEO, mentions as our most important document is our culture document. And within that culture document, something that comes out really strongly is our bias for impact, our bias for action. And what it translates down to is that we want to prioritize asynchronous written communication. So we spend a lot of time on Slack, 250 people, but they're spread out all across the world, right? We're a remote first company. I think we have people from over 20 different countries. And so it's very important to really focus all communications in an asynchronous way. That's important for remote, and in a written way, so that everybody within the company has visibility, transparency, can contribute. And once you have that sort of like shared knowledge of what we're doing and a way to collaborate and help each other out, you realize that you really don't need meetings. In fact, meetings are more of a impediment for people to focus and do their work. One sort of a guideline, one aspirational guideline we have is that we want to be 10 times more productive than we would be if we were, say, working at big tech, right? And in order to be 10 times more productive, have 10 times more impact, we have to do things completely differently. And being able to really protect each other's productive and creative time is super, super important. Empower people to take things from idea to shipping and communicating about it is a huge part of it.
So I guess on that train of thought, when it comes to delivering ROI out of AI, what are you hearing from your clients and partners around sort of those use cases that are delivering ROI today?
Yeah. What we're hearing is that they get much better results by leveraging open models and open source to their specific use cases, right? For most things that you do at a company, for most business cases, you don't really need a model that can explain the meaning of life and solve mathematical theorems, right? You need to classify requests, emails, like you need to look into your technical documentation. You need to do like very specific things. And to do specific things, it's much better and cost efficient to use a specialized model. So that's really the gist of it, but it translates to like real results when companies do the work. Right. So one example is in the financial services industry, capital funds management. That's been a enterprise customer of Hugging Face for a while. They were able to really improve the performance of their use cases while reducing their cost. Why? Because they took their sort of internal data that they didn't want to send or share with like other parties and use that to improve open models into something that works so much better for their use case and is cheaper to run and like they can actually run in-house, which is a requirement for them. But even in other industries, like another enterprise customer is Excel Scout, their patent technology companies. And what they found out is that when you take generic models, they're not that great at understanding semantically sort of patents. And if you can fine tune the model on patent domain data, you get much, much better results. And a model is like so much smaller than you get great cost benefits.
At what point do you think an organization needs to start thinking about maybe this optimization problem, right? Like you've solved a business problem, let's say it might be complaints classification, which may be relevant in the finance sector. You've done it using maybe a large model, it kind of works. At what point do you recommend that companies look into the open, smaller model and specialize them right from the start or later when the business case is proven? What's the recommendation here?
I mean, for a use case like this, I mean, right from the start, right? Because if you try to use a proprietary model available via an API, so first off, you're probably not allowed to do that, right? You're probably not allowed to send your customer complaints over to a third party that's going to process it, maybe store it, maybe train models on top of it. So maybe you don't have a choice. But the thing is, open models have been doing this for years and like much better than anything proprietary and for a much cheaper cost. That's why CFM was reporting 80 times cheaper costs, right? Because they're using an encoder model, a much smaller model. They customizing it so that it works really well for their use case, like this customer complaint classification. And yeah, so I think like for these type of use case, you just right away.
Cool. So there's a bit of a danger when you've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, isn't it? But it's worth going back to first principle and, what's the problem
Yes,
you're solving
yes.
and can you do it?
Yes. It
Simple
was
way.
like an adoption curve of technology, right? It's like this famous curve. And I think like a lot of companies sort of woke up to the potential of AI with the ChatGPT moment, right? It was something new they didn't expect. Of course, like all the people who had been working on AI for years, like saw it coming and understood it wasn't like something novel. But what was novel is that all of a sudden, like great consumer product, everybody starts using it and talking about it, right? So that's why we had like this adoption curve, and I think now we're in the part of the curve where companies are starting to understand and internalize this technology so that they can integrate that with the general way that they build technology and software.
Sure, sure. So I was gonna ask you contrarian view, but it sounds like you don't believe in this one model that solves all problems. Sounds like you're more of a believer of, specific problem, specific solution.
Yeah, and I hope that's not a contrarian view. I think Satya Nadella said about the same thing. I think Jensen Huang said about the same thing, and I think even OpenAI said things along those lines. So I think that's not really a contrarian view. It's more like what we see today in the world, right? I told you we have about 2 million public models on Hugging Face. There's the proof. But I think maybe a contrarian thing that sounds sort of mundane, but I think is powerful, is that AI is just another way of creating technology, right? We see this as this like magical new thing, and it does magical things for sure. But it is just another better way of creating technology where before we're all using software. And now we're starting to think AI first. Like, can an AI model solve this? And how can I integrate that within my technology? That has profound effects, right? Because that means that the world of building AI is a world that will be building on open source, just like previous technology generations before it. Companies need to understand and control the technology that they put out into the world. Like they can't outsource, and even less so to one central private entity. They can outsource their core technology and send to them all about them that is special, which is their data, their customer data, their knowledge, right? That needs to be something that they control, that they host, that they govern, and that's only possible with open models and an open source.
Super. So companies of today protect your data. That's proprietary. That's what makes you special. Put the guardrails and governance around it.
Yes, yes. Take control of your own AI. I think it's really important that companies have this builder culture and approach around AI, right? Don't be a consumer. It's like this old Facebook line, right? If you're not the customer, you're the product. Like, don't be the, or is it the other way around? I don't remember. Anyways, what I'm saying is that you really need to take a builder culture and approach to AI. And yes, you can sort of build your own models. Yes, you can host your own models. Like we have all the different bricks out there. There was this view maybe a year ago that the closed models were so much better than the open models, but that got blown out of the water, right? We've had DeepSeek R1, we've had the latest Quen models, and that's true not just in LLMs. That's also true with image, and that's also true for embeddings and all these different things. So yeah, you can build, you can do it, and maybe get your house in order a little bit.
It's really cool. So how do you keep up with all the latest AI advancements? We're talking about
Yeah,
AI agents. We were talking about, obviously building systems and all
yeah.
the best practices around it. How do you and how does, I guess Hugging Face as an organization keep up and like stay at the forefront?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, like we have an unfair advantage working at Hugging Face, right? Because we're sort of like the center of where everything in AI happens or is released, at least as far as open models and open science. And that's really most of it, honestly, right? So we're kind of at the center of it. So for us, the challenge is not to keep up. For us, the challenge is to sort of be able to absorb this amazing amount of information and, yeah, not spend the whole day doing it. And so I think like part of it is, for me, it's, I mentioned our Slack, right? So I spend quite a bit of time every day just catching up on what everybody else is doing, which includes, of course, like all the new models that are being released, all the libraries that are being released, all the new features of the hub that are being released. And there is a ton, but also there are tools that I use that you can use, right? So for instance, I can give you some pro tips. If you want to keep up with AI research, we have this daily papers feature app thing. If you go to huggingface.co/papers, you can subscribe, and then you'll get curated a list of papers curated by AK, who's been doing that for many years on Twitter than X. So that's a great tool. And another pro tip is like for all the open models, and there's like so many open models every week that pop up, right? And there are models for like text, they're like LLMs, but also models to create images. There's like speech stuff, text to speech, speech to text. I mean, there's like a whole universe. We're far removed from sort of text being the main thing for AI. Like on Hugging Face, every single domain, every single modality is covered, not by a model, but like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of models. So anyways, that's a lot. And our colleague, Merve Moyan, she posts on Hugging Face a weekly recap of like all the releases that you don't want to have missed. And personally, that's one of my biggest time savers, right? And because I follow Merve on Hugging Face, I also get the email whenever she posts it. So that's the cheat sheet.
Now, if I take you to how do you support your clients and partners? So there's clearly a lot happening, right? Like, and it can be quite overwhelming. Like you said, models every day, different modality, different tools, different tech to think about MCP now. So in a world where there's an explosion of complexity, how do you go about supporting your clients and partners, right? Like how can they make sense of it all? And how do they apply it back to the business? Like what are you hearing? Like what's important today?
Anyways, most companies have experimented, built some prototypes around AI. And so now we're in the phase where they're trying to figure out, like, how do I make that part of our product, of our business, of our development processes? And I think it's a really, really exciting period because we see the transition from doing a quick POC on an API that you don't understand or control to like, okay, we're going to internalize this. We're going to productionalize this. We're going to make this secure and compliant with all of our data protection practices, right? And so it's a really exciting time because that all means sort of trying to take control over how AI is going to be used. And so that all means building it from open source software using open models. And so how, to your question, like how do we help businesses doing that? So there's a couple components. One is education, and we put out a lot of content out there. So if you want to, say, deploy Llama 4 on Inferentia 2 on AWS, like we have great guys to walk you down that path. If you want to deploy Whisper in the most efficient way, we have a model catalog, so you can take the model and deploy it with Hugging Face inference endpoints to have super fast Whisper as an API, etc. But then there is something else, which is the amount of professionals who are relying on Hugging Face to build their own AI, to explore all these models and possibilities is quickly growing, right? I mentioned 10 million AI builders. Most of them are professionals. And that creates new challenges for organizations because all of these people have Hugging Face accounts, and it's not really yet fully integrated within like how enterprises are managing their software. It's not necessarily integrated with their best practices like SSO. Basically, it's still at the rogue stage, right? And so to help companies, we've introduced our enterprise offerings. It's Enterprise Plus, it's Enterprise Hub, and it's very much like GitHub Enterprise for GitHub, right? You get security, you get compliance, you get governance features so that the usage of Hugging Face within your company is under control, is per all of your internal processes, and you're not putting your customers' data at risk and all these things.
Super. So on that topic, generally security and trust in AI system is a bit of a topic now, right? Like we're
Yeah.
still thinking about, on one end, you've got like issues around, hallucination and bias. On the other end, you've got kind of like it's opening a whole new sort of vector of attacks in its own right. So why is that critical, and how do you think about it at the Hugging Face?
It's super important. It's mission critical for us. And so on the securing the public models, we do a lot of things. So first, I think maybe the most impactful and underrated thing that we've done is to create and promote the adoption of safe tensors. Safe tensors is an open source library that defines a format to store models. And it really is built to reduce all the vulnerabilities that are part of how models were used before, right? Using technologies like pickles that allow sort of remote code, arbitrary code to be injected, etc. So safe tensors was a huge step forward, and we've done a lot to make that the default on Hugging Face. But then we also take active steps, right? We have scanners. So we scan for a whole bunch of things. We scan for malware. We scan to make sure that you didn't leak your API key, your Hugging Face token, or your OpenAI API key within your repositories. We also scan for specific AI security vulnerabilities. And we integrate for that with some of the leading AI security companies like Protect AI or JFrog, so that their security scanners run on every single model that is publicly uploaded on Hugging Face. I mentioned pickles. We inspect the content of pickle files to make sure that we don't see any vulnerability. And whenever we see anything, it's right there on the model page. When you go look at the files, it will tell you what it found. So that's the work that we do to secure publicly accessible assets. But then organizations needs to do their part too, right? And when you have tens, if not hundreds, of people within your own organization, if you don't add things like SSO, if you don't have sort of access controls, then it becomes a free-for-all and everybody has access to everything by default. You may create a public repository for like a top secret model and you didn't intend it to be. You probably have like a lot of employees who left the company but still have access to all your stuff. I mean, it's really a mess. And as I say, we're still in this period where the corporations, the organizations are catching up to how AI adoption has been surging. And from an IT perspective, we're in that phase where they haven't really caught up to all the usage that's going on with open models and with Hugging Face, etc. So we're in kind of this era of rogue IT where everybody at the company has a Hugging Face account and that stuff on Hugging Face, but like the organization really hasn't caught up with it.
Jeff, couple of quick fire round questions for you.
Sure.
What's your favorite programming language?
I guess I'm gonna have to say Python.
I was hoping you'd say Python.
Yeah, because it's lingua franca in AI.
It is lingua franca, that's true. What was your favorite subject back in school?
Entrepreneurship.
Oh, you studied entrepreneurship?
I did. I studied computer science in engineering school in France, Central Paris, and continued that over in Berkeley. But the thing that fascinated me the most, actually not the thing, the people who fascinated me the most were entrepreneurs who were sort of able to make it so that they could live and build by their own rules. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and so I took a specialization in entrepreneurship.
Great. I resonate with that a lot, Jeff, being an entrepreneur myself. And I think the world now with, 10 million AI builders and more, definitely we're going to see more entrepreneurship. So that's exciting. Final question. Favorite music genre?
Ah, oh man, I'm gonna say, okay, my favorite band of late. Well, I guess a couple of French bands that I really took to. Pépite, I think they're from
Pépite.
Paris.
Okay.
Feu Chatterton. I love to listen to a whole bunch of different music. Depends on my mood, depends on what I'm trying to do. But yeah, these ones are ones that I wish they would come to San Francisco for a concert. I've been monitoring their pages, their touring pages.
Well, Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure to host you. It's been a great conversation.
Thanks, Raoul. It was fun.
Fascinating discussion with Jeff. I really like what Hugging Face has done and create a very cool, enthusiastic community in the AI space. Clearly, there's a lot going on. We had a really great discussion around, we live in a world where there's so many models. And once you got a hammer, everything can look like a nail, right? It doesn't mean that you've got like a large model, huge LLM that can do everything and anything, that you should actually use that to solve a specific business problem, right? So if you have to do like customer complaint classification, you'll be better off using an open model and fine-tuning it with your data. It'll be more lightweight, it'll be like more precise, it'll be more cost-effective once you like ship into production, and you don't have to pay a huge inference cost because the model itself, the underlying algorithm, is much simpler. So it's worthwhile thinking today. There's lots of options to build stuff with. It's worth looking at open model, small models in particular, and specializing depending on your need. So, bit more of a technical conversation, this one, but super enjoyable. See you on the next episode of the Data and Mastery podcast. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Data and AI Mastery. If you found value in today's discussion, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an insight from the leaders driving the future of data and AI. And if you're a data and AI leader looking to upskill your workforce with the fundamental data and AI skills to transform your business, Cambridge Spark is here to guide you every step of the way. Be sure to reach out to us on LinkedIn or on our website, cambridgespark.com. Until then, be sure to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with data, and remember, mastery comes with continued learning and action. Until next time, stay ahead, stay inspired, and stay masterful.